Welcome today to the first of 4 community conversations on race relations. My name is Michael Evans, and I am the senior pastor of the Bethlehem Baptist Church located here in Mansfield, Texas, and we're celebrating 150 years of service here in the city of Mansfield. Today is Juneteenth, known short for June 19th. This marks the day when federal troops led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure all enslaved people that they were now free. The troops' arrival came a full 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by then President Abraham Lincoln. And as stated by many, this 2.5 year gap serves as a constant reminder of the oft-time fact that justice for disenfranchised and marginalized people is often delayed, and unfortunately, in many instances, it is denied. Juneteenth honors the end to slavery in the United States and is considered the longest running African American holiday. In regard to our local celebration, the holiday has been formally celebrated in Mansfield for at least 35 years, and the hosts have been Brenda and Norman Norwood. A few years ago, the city of Mansfield began to help to support the festivities with funds that was set aside for the event. Citizens of Mansfield meet at McClendon Park, located on West Broad Street. McClendon Park is named after the late McClendon Moody, still the only African American to have served on the Mansfield City Council. He was voted in 1988. That was more than 30 years ago. I am also happy to introduce my co-host for this discussion, Mrs. Terry Chantel, a business consultant and financial literacy educator. She is the CEO of Pajama CEO, which is a business development consulting agency. She is also the founder of Greenhouse Wealth Academy, which provides financial literacy and entrepreneurial education to teenage boys through camps and through courses. So at this time, I'm going to pass you over now, transition to Ms. Chantel.
Thank you. My name is Terry Chantel, and at this time, I'm going to introduce our panelists. We first have the Honorable David Cook. He is the mayor of Mansfield and is participating in several community organizations, including Mansfield Churches for the City and Mansfield Mission Center. We have also our Chief of Police, the MISD Chief of Police, Gregory Mentor. Gregory Mentor began his career in law enforcement in 1997. He started his career as a patrol officer and began the first SRO program for the Azle ISD as a member of that police department. Since that time, he has served as an investigator, sergeant, lieutenant, and assistant chief. And as I introduced earlier, we also have our mayor, David Cook. We also have Dr. Kimberly Cantu, who is the MISD Superintendent. Dr. Kimberly Cantu is in her 27th year of service in public school education with 21 years of service to Mansfield ISD. She has held teaching, coaching, and various administrative roles and was most recently MISD's deputy superintendent before becoming the second female superintendent in the district's history in December 2019. Next, we have Devan Allen. Devan Allen is the county commissioner. She is a devoted public servant invested in the fight for our community in the areas of transportation, affordable housing, criminal justice, economic development, and other critical issues. We also have the Honorable Judge Kenneth Sanders. Kenneth Sanders was elected judge by the citizens of Tarrant County's Precinct 7 to serve as their Justice of the Peace Course representative. And last but definitely not least, we have Dr. James Tucker. Dr. James Tucker is a native of Fort Worth, Texas. He attended Lamar High School in Arlington, Texas, and he received a football scholarship to attend the University of Kentucky, in which he earned his bachelor's degree in social work with a minor in psychology. And that concludes all of our panelists. Pastor.
All right, thank you very much. I want to highlight something real quick. If you would, let me reintroduce our chief, Tracy Aaron. Of course, Tracy has served in law enforcement since 1989, so he is a seasoned veteran, and we're happy, of course, to have him and to work with him here in the city of Mansfield, and our mayor, of course, the Honorable David Cook, who has served 11 years as our mayor, and he's done an outstanding job. To each of our panelists, thank you very much for being with us. And of course, Ms. Chantel, thank you so much for introducing them. Now, in regard to our registrants on today, we have provided questions to each of our participants. Now, here's something that we know. We fully recognize that we will not be able to entertain all of the questions that have come to us. I believe that we have almost 300 registrants, so you all know we will not be able to ask all 300 of these questions. However, I think that it's important for us to know that this is only the beginning of this process. And therefore, today we'll begin the dialogue. That's what this is all about. We'll come back, we hope, in about 3 months with possible changes in policy and progress reports if they are warranted. Each panelist will have 2 minutes to answer his or her questions. And again, we thank each and every one of them. I want to say on the front end of this that every one of them was eager to be a part of this community conversation. Now I have the opportunity to present to you really the stars of this show, the students of Mansfield Independent School District. It's because of them that we are happy to be a part of this great dialogue. They were the ones who served as the passion and the push behind the peaceful march, the largest peaceful march that is recorded in Mansfield history. And now I'm happy to throw this to them. So Ms. Majesty, she will come at this time and she will ask the first question.
Okay, hi guys. Like you said, my name is Majesty Mathis, and I want to ask, so the Washington Post of 2018 states a Southern Poverty Law Center report shows that few K through 12 teachers have the textbooks, understanding, and comfort with the material necessary to teach about slavery. This also explains the lack of classroom time spent on the history of Native Americans. Although the Civil Rights Movement is a standard teaching in most U.S. history classes, Reconstruction and Black migration are not. Many kids right now have the mindset that Black history started in shackles, slavery. Some teachers tell their students workers were brought to America from Africa, or indentured servants who wanted to come. So my question is to you. Although now at Mansfield High School, there is a wonderful African American history class, though it is only for a semester, why do I find so much missed Black history in regular history classes? For example, we don't learn about the lynch law or purposeful syphilis injections on Black Americans. I find more of my history on social media than in school. How can MISD ensure teachers are keeping students informed about relevant African American history outside the mandated curriculum, as it is clearly important and relevant? Dr. Cantu, are you willing to pursue changes to the MISD school curriculum in this regard?
Thank you, Majesty, for that question, and it's good to see you again. We absolutely are. We are talking, we're actually beginning to have those conversations right now. We are developing a district level committee that's going to be able to look at all facets of our organization, one of those being curriculum and instruction, and the types of materials that are introduced, the choices that are made, because we know that although we might be in a textbook adoption that's going to last for 10 years, it doesn't mean that we can't supplement and enhance what the state is requiring us to teach. And we need to be better at that, and we will be better at that. We shared a little bit the other day on a different podcast that we are exploring the hiring of an equity officer. That person would be a district level position that would also be looking at all facets of our organization and working with the committee that we're developing to make all of those recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu. So a question from a citizen that is a bit of a follow-up to that. What can, in addition to the curriculum changes, what can MIS do at a student level to combat racism? I myself have 3 teenagers in the school district. What can we do to have an intentional effort to stop that at the student level as well?
I think a lot of that has to do with the way that we engage with students, with the, we've talked a little bit and spent some time having some conversations surrounding the training that's necessary for our employees, but we also need to have conversations and intentional conversations with our students. We have an SEL program that has been rolling out now, and it's been being developed for over a year now. We have a director that is dedicated to that. A part of that SEL curriculum is related to, there's a section of it that is related very much to empathy and sympathy and lessons surrounding that, and basically being kind to everyone and respectful. That curriculum is going to start to be rolled out next year, and so you can expect that. But in addition to that, there are other things that we can do that are even more direct and more specific. I think it is training and providing experiences for all of our students related to those sorts of things. And then it's also making sure that our students are informed at all levels about where they can go when they do experience something like that. What are the processes? What are the safe places that they can go? You know, the fact that Mansfield High School has a BSA organization, and we spent time with them yesterday, is incredible. We need more of those. Kids need to have a place that they can go, but we also want to make sure that that's not the only place that they can go. They need to be able to see and have trusted adults that are also equally trained so that they can feel safe no matter where they are. But I think it's just a multi-tiered approach. And again, I think with recommendations from our committee and with our equity officer as well, I think we're going to have even more suggestions related to that.
Okay, and so when you say that we are rolling out things, is this on a broad spectrum, meaning it will be required for all students, or will it be optional? Is there intentionality around all students receiving it?
There we go. Okay, sorry, I'm still on mute. Yes, it is a district-wide K-12 program. And well, I don't really even want to call it a program. It's just going to be embedded. It's going to be the way that we do business. But yes, absolutely. And we've had some things in place. It started with restorative circles, restorative practices. We've been implementing that. The expectation is for that to be 100% across the board next year. Then we really roll out into the SEL curriculum, the SEL lessons. And like I said, one of those focuses is social awareness, where empathy and respect for all and all of those things are key components of that one competency on the wheel.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu. Pastor?
All right, and SEL is social emotional learning, I believe. Am I right about that? All right, excellent. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Dr. Cantu, and thank you, Ms. Chantel. All right, this is a question for the commissioner and for Dr. Tucker. We are having this conversation on race relations, and we know that this is oftentimes very uncomfortable. And that's why we need to have these kind of conversations so we can get to learn more about each other and where we come from. I'm needing the two of you to comment on this. It's a question from one of our registrants. Where and how do you see systemic racism in your areas of service? Where do you see systemic racism in your areas? It's for the commissioner and for Dr. Tucker. All right, the commissioner.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Evans, and I appreciate all of you for joining this event today. And I think it's a very relevant question. I certainly see it really in any level of government, but obviously I particularly serve in county government. And when you look at what county government is responsible for, and as a commissioner, I serve on the commissioner's court, and we are the governing body for county government. much like the mayor and city council would be for the city, or the school board president and the school board would be for the school district. And so when we, as a commissioners court, look at adopting the county budget, how we do elections, how we allocate resources in public health and building of roads and bridges, aspects of our hospital district, the Tarrant County Hospital District, or JPS, who gets appointed to boards and commissions, economic development, the criminal justice system, which includes our sheriff's department and our district attorney's office and our criminal courts. That's a huge operation, which we don't all oversee. We have over 60 independently elected officials in the county, and we can't tell them what to do, but as a court, it's our responsibility to set policies, and of course, to make sure that the processes are as equitable as possible. So in kind of those areas that I've already listed, there's many more that I could list. It's quite an expansive list of areas. And I see that it's my responsibility to make sure, one, that the 500,000 residents that I serve in Precinct 2, and that's in Arlington, Kennedale, Mansfield, Cantu, Dalworthington Gardens, and the Tarrant County portion of Grand Prairie, that when I am serving them, as well as the over 2 million residents that live in Tarrant County, that we're seeking to do so in a way that ensures equity. So because I have to emphasize that we have to ensure that there's equity, that means that very naturally some of those processes lead to disequity and to systemic issues. And I could go on, but I certainly would like to hear from Dr. Tucker.
Thank you. Thank you. I see the systematic racism across the board in the school district. I see it from teachers, administration, just across the board. The reason why I say that is because I find it hard to believe that school districts cannot find adequate African-American males, African-American females, Hispanic males, Hispanic females to do the jobs of teachers, coaches, administrators, considering you have HBCUs, you have other colleges and institutions who have those particular persons on their campus. So I believe that that systematic racism is perpetuated year after year after year. And I've always been amazed at how we cannot come up with a true system to go out and recruit like we do the athletes, to bring in those particular persons so that they can match the students who sit in those classrooms. Because I truly believe if you bring in those that match, then across the board we'll have less issues with discipline, less issues with feeling disproportionate in a classroom. And we may have classrooms and instruction that we feel like we can relate to across the board. So again, I see it as something that is perpetuated consistently in the districts in this area. So.
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear from our student, Laura.
Hi, my name is Laura Yan, and I'm an upcoming senior at Lakeridge High School. I have a question for Chief Aaron and Chief Minter. As states across the nation, such as California, Colorado, Minnesota, and New York are implementing police reform measures, does Mansfield Police Department have any plans to follow suit?
Well, I can certainly take that question, and I really appreciate you asking it. You know, one of the things that I think is important is that you know what's already going on in your community, and so to that question, we look at our policies and procedures that we've been working on for the last several years, and what can we do better in those policies and procedures. You know, and we do that in several different ways. We present our training curriculum to a committee once a year, and they review our training needs and frankly tell us if that's adequate or if we should be looking at something else different in training. But we are constantly looking for ways to improve that. You know, it was not too long ago, there was the seven pillars of justice that was put in place by Obama, and we still are looking and implementing those changes that were dictated back at that time. And our department in itself meets the chief's best practices and we're recognized by the chief's best practices where our policies and procedures are reviewed.
Thank you, Chief. And I'd like to follow that up. Laura, did you have another follow-up or are you good?
Finished my question.
Okay, so to follow that up with a citizen question in a little bit of more detail, in specifically what type of training do we have planned for MISD police officers in regards to behavior that may be considered prejudice or unfair treatment as they are executing their jobs? Is there an intentional effort to up the level of training? Specifically, if we're speaking in practical terms, we all know that we, as Black men, there's this story that we tell our kids and our husbands: when you're being pulled over, put your hand on the steering wheel, don't move, things like that. What type of training can be in place to sort of de-escalate that fear and anxiety around being pulled over by any police officer?
Chief Aaron, I'll take this one. There are state mandated training that is given for our students 9th grade through 12th grade, and it's civilian interaction. And that's where police officers actually go in and teach this class, and our officers have been teaching. And it's talked specifically about traffic stops, how to handle a traffic stop, what to do, what not to do. Speaking specifically on training for officers.
We're having a hard time hearing you with your connection. There's a lot of feedback. If we can't hear you, Police Chief Aaron can take the answer. If we can test you out one more time.
Is this any better?
No, you sound a bit underwater.
Somebody help me out.
Okay. All right, so we'll let you figure that out. Can you continue with that answer, Chief Aaron, on the specific training to decrease prejudice and unfair treatment of people of color?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's no problem. So believe it or not, we do training every year with our folks. We not only do racial profiling training and biased policing training, but that's something that we do every year. The state mandates a certain portion of that through the academy, but we find that it's important to get in front of our guys every single year. At each one of those training classes, we also go through our use of force policy. And so we want to make sure that the officers are refreshed with our use of force policy at different times throughout the year, whether it be a defensive tactics training class, the bias police training, our de-escalation classes, any of those, we use that as an opportunity to also talk about our use of force policy. But through our training, it's done by an outside consultant. That consultant also reviews our use of force issues and compiles a report at the end of the year that's not only presented to our council, but is also presented to the state.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that answer. Pastor?
All right. Chief, one of the frequent questions that we have definitely been asked has to do with the chokeholds that I know Congress is working on attempting to get those banned. And I'm curious about our policy here in Mansfield. So the question is, will the vascular neck restraint be considered a deadly use of force? And you answer that, then the citizen asks, if not, why? If so, so if you would answer that question, is that vascular neck restraint, is it considered deadly use of force?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
So it's already a deadly use of force. And as a matter of fact, you mentioned earlier that I started here in '89, and I can never remember a time that it was our policy to use the chokehold. I was talking to another officer as recent as this morning, and he, as a matter of fact, said the same thing. He says, where did that come from? Because we have never accepted that as a use of force, and more specifically, it is prohibited in our policy only in a deadly force incident where it's allowed by the penal code.
All right. The person had pointed out to me in the policy book. So yeah, it's good to hear you say that we've not practiced that. in Mansfield. And I think that brings some comfort to a lot of citizens. So thank you very much for that, Chief. I appreciate you, buddy. All right, Ms. Chantel.
Okay, so I will throw this question to our next student. We should have Julian up. Chris, sorry.
Hi, this is Julian Larry. My question is to the police chief. How do you view systematic oppression as a white person? And do you ever recognize yourself enforcing the system of white supremacy?
You know, I happen to be married to a Hispanic female, and I have to tell you that I don't see color. I don't see color in our police department, and I don't see color in our community. And so whenever I hear and see those stories of oppression, and believe me, I've heard those stories, and I've seen them. I've seen them firsthand. I don't appreciate them. And when I'm in a position to make a change in terms of correcting an issue like that comes up, I assure you that I take the initiative to be able to correct that, whether it's in a personal or professional atmosphere. I can't believe some of the stories that I've heard as I've talked to some of our protesters on the side of the road and the things that they've experienced, and I absolutely hate that.
I appreciate that answer, Chief, and I would like to first thank you for the things that you have been implementing as a part of your leadership. And there's a very positive aspect to not seeing color, as you mentioned, but then there's also the flip side where, because we don't see color, some people don't also acknowledge the education that comes with seeing that color to be able to implement the changes that need to happen. And so I appreciate the policies and the things that are being outlined so that we do see color in a way to make sure that it's being withheld in terms of justice. So I will throw a question to Pastor Evans right now. This question is for you, Pastor Evans. What role can churches and religious leaders play in healing the racial divide?
Oh, that's a good question. So now I need to get into my panelist seat. Well, you know, in regard to churches, the first thing that we should do, those of us who are preaching from pulpits on a Sunday morning, no matter who we are, we need to first speak truth. I mean, you know, I know that it is an uncomfortable place and can be an uncomfortable space, but we need to do that. And then we also need to be open to partnering with others. I mean, that's important. I mean, because when we build relationships with each other, we come to learn that, you know, some of the common denominators are, I mean, it's really simple. You know, people need food, people need faith, people need, you know, all of that in order to survive. And that's just who we are. That's what we try to do. So that's important. And then too, in Mansfield, we meet every first Thursday of the month at 7:30. With the mayor, we all pray together, and I think that has helped us over the years as well. I have heard from many of the clergy persons around the state and a few here in our city, and they are having those uncomfortable conversations. And now some, you know, of course, they are reporting out that you know, they're really having to do some one-on-ones in this area, but it's still, I think that's who we are. Ezekiel 3:17 says that we are the watchmen for the house of Israel, so to speak. And it says that whenever we hear a word of warning from God, that we are obligated to share that word, whether it's comfortable or not, whether it's nice or not. We've got to talk about it. And there's a way to do whatever you do. But I think, Ms. Chantel, thank you so much. That's how we can do and must do a better job in Mansfield. But being here 31 years now, 29 as the pastor, I can say to a pastor, to a church, that we work together, and I've never felt as if any of the churches did not want to partner into in these kind of causes. When I talked to them, they were ready to go. So I appreciate that, and hope we can implement and do that same thing throughout the state, throughout the country. So thank you.
Thank you, Pastor, and thank you for the role you've been playing in everything, including the march. Many don't know that you were a big part behind providing the resources for that, and so I appreciate the role that you've been playing. Now we will have another question for our student. We have Chris. Chris?
Hi, my name is Christopher Lacey. I will be a senior this upcoming school year. My question is, how does MISD advertise job openings to people of color? In other words, is the district intentional about making sure that we have a diverse police force that represents our whole community?
We advertise for our, well, Chief Mentor, do you want to talk about, I think the question was specific to the police force. Do you want to discuss that? I think you're on mute. You're not on mute. Okay, I'll try and take this. Hang on. If I leave something out, maybe type it into the chat so people can maybe see it from the police perspective. We advertise on our webpage, and speaking more specifically to recruiting, we do go out. But when I'm talking about recruiting, I'll be talking about recruiting, related to teachers. So Chief Mentor, we need to talk about the recruiting that he does related to his officers. If we do talk about recruiting for teachers, we have been very intentional for the last several years in going to diversities that have a large minority population in their students. So, we go to Prairie View A&M. We recently have started going to the University of Houston. I know Venetia Sneed, who is in Human Resources and is over all of the recruiting for the district, is very, very intentional and strategic. We go to UTEP in El Paso and down towards South Texas to Pan Am, looking for Hispanic. And again, Pan Am, University of Houston, looking for other diversity for African American and other diverse educators to come to MISD. Intentional in our job fair, recruiting people for job fairs. When they go out to the different job fairs at the universities, they are inviting all different groups of people to come back to the MISD job fair, and we try to make sure that we have a very balanced mix of people that come to the table. And so that's sort of a little bit about how the recruiting has gone. When it comes to how we're doing with our numbers, we know that we are still not where we need to be as far as our teaching staff mirroring and reflecting our student population. We're in a much better situation when it comes to our campus administrative staff with regard to that, but we know we still have much work to do.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu, and thank you for touching on the staff, because there was a citizen question that sort of touched on that there are two schools, I believe, Reed and Tips. I'm not sure, but the citizen did ask there aren't any staff members or teachers of color. So I haven't been able to verify that, but if that is the case, can you just speak to that a little bit in terms of at the student level? It's not so high, at the administrative.
Yes, and so I looked at those campuses, and actually there's not a ton of diversity, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's a ton of diversity at those two specific campuses, but there are minority people in positions at that campus. At Reed, we have a couple of teachers who are people of color. When we look at Tips, we have a Hispanic principal, we have an African American assistant principal, and I think we have a couple of people on staff there who are teachers who I believe are African American and or Hispanic. And so there is some diversity, but like I said, there is still much work to do.
Thank you, Dr. Oh, am I okay? Thank you. So I have another question. This is for the commissioner. Commissioner Allen, what role does the county play in healing the racial divide? And as an African American public official, what challenges do you face?
Thanks for that question, Chantel, or for those two questions. let's see. I'm going to try to give you the short of it because there's quite a bit to it. I would say that the county government, or really any government, should expect to play a substantial role in healing the racial divide. And that means first is listening. That means acknowledging that there is a racial divide. It also means confirming the experiences of others with empathy and compassion. That really is something that anyone in a leadership role should be prepared to practice, but certainly when you have sworn to represent others. And then kind of with that listening and really hearing the experience of others is making sure that you're working to identify solutions. And then once you do that, then you should be prepared to act on them through your policies, through your programs, through your allocation of resources. And it's a process. So you're going to have to reassess it. You're going to have to actively, continually seek input from your community. Is this working? What more can we do? You know, what do we need to keep the same? And then it's a constant kind of responsive process. And just as I mentioned in an earlier question about, you know, some of the things that county government is responsible for, then you have to actively look at those areas and see if you're either doing one of two things. You're either encouraging racial divide or you're discouraging it. There's no neutral. There's no standing in the middle. You're either proactively working to it, reacting to it in a positive way, or you're probably reinforcing it. And as an African-American elected official, I will say the day that I joined the Commissioner's Court, I became the third woman ever in the 150+ year history of the court to serve. The very first woman is Commissioner Devan Bagsby, and she passed in late 2018. And then the second is Commissioner Marty Van Ravensway, and she's still living today. She lives in Weatherford or Midlothian maybe. But so there is a 30-year age difference between myself and the next youngest member on our court, who's our county judge. And just a few weeks ago in open court, I had shared some of the ageism, sexism, racism that I've experienced in serving in this role from folks within the county and then also from within the community. And it's not something that is necessarily new to me. A lot of folks could probably identify with it, you know, being mansplained or being called a little girl or a young lady or missy, experiencing microaggression, being told how well you speak or how intelligent you are or how well you conduct yourself, or someone asking you of something that you presented if you wrote it. Those are things that they could be legitimate complaints, but you know, sometimes it's really hard to judge the intent of someone's heart. But sometimes it's folks asking the questions because they are practicing that microaggression. Now these aren't kind of solid numbers, but we guesstimate that of the 41 cities and 17 or so school districts in Tarrant County, those who are in elected office, less than 30 are African American. It's even fewer if you talk about those in the Latinx community and the Asian community. There are approximately 200 women that serve in office, and last year, in recognition of the 99th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, we recognized every woman elected official in the county. And then I would say that there are probably less than 20 or so elected officials that are around the 40 age range. I'm 38. I was 36 when I was elected in 2018. I'm 38 now. And really, I could give you so many more examples of things that I encounter on a very regular basis. I've just made a commitment to myself that I'm not going to allow those experiences to serve as the fences that settle to where I become bitter, or to where I allow them to get in the way of me serving a very diverse and a very deserving community.
Thank you so much for all of that input, Commissioner. And a second question from a citizen, but a follow-up question that I have for you to add to that, because you touched on so much that is so needed
to
be addressed. In terms of, you touched on towards the end, you know, the aspect of, as a minority, as a woman, as a Black woman, that there is the microaggression and there are things that you have to do just to fight a little bit harder to get past those things, to continue on to the successes that you have. So for the city of Mansfield, is there anything that is being implemented to particularly award contracts to minority and women-owned businesses? Any policies that will make sure the businesses here definitely benefit from the contracts that happen here in MISD?
So I could speak to, you thought it was for me, right? Okay. So I can speak to.
Or the mayor, yes, or the mayor.
Oh, okay, okay, I'm so sorry. I was like,
But
I can speak
either
to the
one of
county,
you.
but I can't speak to anything else. Okay, well, I'll let the mayor take the
Okay.
city part. Go for it, Mayor.
Mayor, you're muted.
Is that it?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thanks for your comments, Commissioner, and thanks for everything that you've said today. What I was saying is this is certainly a learning opportunity for me today, and I'm certainly listening a lot and look forward to the call today. I want to thank Pastor Evans for setting it up. But just to answer the question directly, not to my knowledge, as far as minority-owned businesses or woman-owned businesses, I've had some experience with that as a lawyer, and it's I will tell you it's a very challenging process. And I know this is not the direct question, but I do think that there's lots of room for improvement with the organizations that approve or certify the woman-owned or minority-owned businesses. So I can say that as a process needs to be improved. And as far as the city of Mansfield is concerned, that's something I will discuss with our HR manager and our new interim city manager to make inquiries and get back to this group.
Thank you. Okay, so that follow-up looks like you following up with some sort of overall, at least initial conversation with the HR manager.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I will throw the question to another student. We have Laura.
I was told I was going to be asked a question.
Here is your question. Many are saying that this movement is different from other civil rights movements from the recent past. How do you explain the diversity and the mixture of ethnic groups who are shouting Black Lives Matter?
You know, prior to the 1960s civil rights movement, it wasn't a very accepting time. We lived in a time where racism and prejudice was popular, it was accepted, and it was common, and it was completely wrong, but it still occurred, and it just happened all throughout our society. But after that civil rights movement, because of the progress we've made, we've come to a time where younger generations are growing up, becoming more accepting. You know, diversity and equality are traits that are seen as positive in our society, and you know, racism is completely not tolerated in our society now. So now, because of this way that we've been raised, these younger generations are going to be more likely to come out to these protests and voice their opinions, you know, against these injustices which are continuing to happen in our society, to bring more progress, because that's how we were raised, and we're just going to fight for what we know is right.
And congratulations to your parents, because they raised a very bright young woman. So I have one more little question for you, Laura. What do you experience as a student? I know we are at a different generation right now. Do you feel that that is generally the case, where the students and your friends, colleagues, peers are also raised the same way? Or do you feel that some are still being raised in a way that contributes to racial behavior?
Personally, I think that the majority of people I know are, you know, it's so good that they are becoming more accepting, and I don't see a lot of racism among my peers, but I do know it still exists, and I have seen several instances of it happen at my school, and they were addressed, but it just, sometimes it still happens, and it's becoming less and less and fewer, but it still does. And, you know, as peers, as students, we're taking that initiative and our responsibility to go out and inform our peers and students like we're doing today. And that's definitely helping those peers who have just been raised the wrong way become more informed and, you know, let go of those horribly wrong beliefs. So there's definitely progress, and there's definitely less people who are, being racist and showing those horrible characteristics, but it still exists.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you for your input. Pastor?
Laura, outstanding, outstanding. I believe myself it has a lot to do with upbringing. I've said myself that if you want to start anew and if you want to help your community, your culture, that it starts at the dinner table, the things that people say and do in those private spaces. So outstanding. Thank you so very much. And I say, like Miss Chantel, your parents must definitely be proud of you. Let me just do another sound check with Chief Mentor. Chief, let me hear you. All right. My chief is still mute. All right, Chief, we got you, brother. We're going to work it out. All right. You're all right, Chief. All right. Let me ask this question to Judge Sanders. Judge Sanders, talk to us about the role of the justice of the peace in matters of equal treatment under the law. And the second part of that will be, are the number of types of cases tried in your court, are they representational of the demographics of our community? So one, what does the JP do? And number two, do we see a balance of people that come before you?
The type of cases that we see in this court is a variety. It ranges from eviction cases to small claims, to debt claims, to personal matters between neighbors, and to dealing with truancy as it relates to our kids' school attendance. And in terms of the makeup of the majority of the people who come before the court, I would say it's definitely a good mixture of all the citizens that make up Precinct 7. The only concern I would probably possibly have is when it comes to truancy. I do tend to see more Black and brown kids coming before the court when it relates to truancy in terms of the lack of attendance going to school.
Could you elaborate on that? I mean, is it, we had another citizen question, and again, I'm talking to the JP and then school district and jumping in, and I've got Chief Mentor on the phone. I was not going to have this man, bless his heart, he give us all of his time and then we not hear him. So in regard to that, one of the questions that's been asked, when they go to the alternative schools and all of that, many parents have said, they see more students of color than they do any others. And I know that, you don't just have one group of kids, doing all the wrong. So help me to understand how that stuff kind of balances out, where some get a slap on the hand, others get sent out of the school. What's that about?
I can't speak to what's happening in school. I can only speak to the kids who are sent to the court from the school districts.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask our interventionist, and then I'll ask Dr. Cantu. Go ahead, Dr. Tucker. Thank you, Justice B.
Well, Pastor and panel, with that question asked, first, most of the students with the new laws and the new legislation going on, they are given actually most of the time like a reprieve. You go in, you do what you're supposed to do, and act like this didn't exist. So by the time they get to the justice of the peace with the concern of truancy, they have failed on a couple of venues. So now the district has to pursue this or push this. But to me, I would have to say that it's bigger than even going to the justice of the peace. This lies going back to what Dr. Cantu mentioned earlier, which is the social and emotional development, the social and emotional learning. There are the 5 components. When we're talking to our students and a fight happens or truancy happens, or I just don't want to go to school for some odd reason, we want to slap them with a ticket or a fine as opposed to sitting down with them to get to the core issue of the situation and coming up with a strategy. And until we do that, they're going to consistently go on to the justice of the peace, where they feel like, at this point, the school was always against them. The school always wanted them to receive this fine. Now they go before the justice of the peace. Now they're upset. Nothing happened, nothing changes, and now we have another dropout. So we really need to look and truly and address the social and emotional development and the social emotional learning and come up with a true strategy and allow the child to work it to come up with something that he or she feels like is something that's tangible and feasible for them, not us. That is the biggest issue that I see, and that's how I feel like we have to address it. Thank you.
And just to piggyback on what he's saying, oftentimes when these kids come before my court, I try and talk to them. My job is just not to build a paper trail on those students. I like to try and see what can we do to redirect them, to remotivate them, to get them to rededicate their lives to doing an education and to trying to formulate a plan for their life going forward. Oftentimes occasionally I will pull a kid out of court and talk to him in my office, and I can't tell you how oftentimes that kid gets back in my office and they break down crying. Just to show how upsetting it is just for them.
All right, thank you. Chief Mentor, will you try to unmute yourself? Let's see if we can hear from you this time. All right, go ahead, Chief. All right. All right, Chief. Tell you these darn gremlins.
How does that sound?
Ah.
Am I there?
Go ahead, Chief. I've got about 8 questions for you. The first one, now go ahead, Chief, and jump in on that because
I don't hear you.
I don't hear him either.
hey, the Chief stole my. Okay, anyway, Chief stole my voice. All right, Chief, in regard to our dealings with students of color, what have you, do you all maintain or keep any data on any of that stuff? And if so, what do you see?
We do keep data on the arrests that we make, on citations that we give, that kind of thing. And there is a disparity. We tend to have more African-American arrests, citations, to be totally transparent. One of the things, I've never been a firm believer in making arrests, issuing citations, if there are other avenues that you can take. And I'll tell you, as a child, if it wasn't for individuals mentoring me, individuals like the judge taking me to the side and talking to me, I would probably never be where I'm at. And so individuals, students, juveniles, young men and women need an opportunity to make mistakes without getting into the criminal system. But there are certain things that we can't do that with, and terroristic threat, things like that. When a threat is made towards a school for a bombing, something like that. I'm talking about some of the minor things that end up in court, Class C misdemeanors. There's no reason for that if it can be taken care of at a lower level or even as school discipline. So I'm all for that, and we're going to gear the things that we do this next school year towards allowing the school to handle more of the discipline and not so much the state.
You know what? Let me just say this. Thank you. You know what? We waited all that time to hear that answer. It's a great time. That's a great answer. And also, Dr. Cantu, I would think that would have a lot to do with the way that campus administration handles those particular cases. Again, I've got 2 adult boys. Both of them came up through the MISD system. And, I remember one of their principals just dealing with a matter. I mean, they dealt with that. Do you think that might have, this is a loaded question, so I apologize. Let me just make the statement then, because I don't want to set you up like that. I think that a lot of that has to do with sometimes that racial imbalance or the lack of diversity on those campuses. And just like sometimes in the case of law enforcement, when you have a particular stereotype built up of a person. Dr. Tucker is a big guy. He played football for the University of Kentucky. He did. And that's maybe why he's so successful in AISD. You know, I don't know. But the point being made, if there is a level of fear in the mind of those educators, then they are more reactionary. You know, and it is, you know, Chief Aaron can say the same thing about a scary officer. You know, I mean, if that officer is afraid, I mean, if I'm afraid, you know, and I'm an LTC, if I'm afraid, I'm going to draw on you, you know, I'm a preacher, you know, so I think that the program that you're talking about and with that equity officer, that ought to be something that ought to lower the rate of young people going to the police, going to the JP. Tell me if I'm wrong in that. And I apologize, I made a statement, but you.
No. Oh, thank you. No, you are not wrong at all. And, you know, listening to just the last couple of people sharing their answers, you know, and we talked about social emotional learning, but social emotional learning is also for the adults. It is not just for students. And in all of the trainings and the SEL conferences that I've been to, I mean, if it's done right, it will and should dramatically impact adults. It makes adults look inside themselves at their own bias, at their own issues, all the junk that we all bring to the table with us every day that we've grown up with. It brings out all to the table, and a lot of them have found, as we visited schools that have implemented this, that during the course of delivering the SEL curriculum to students, they themselves have had to really self-reflect and have grown exponentially just by engaging in those types of conversations with our kids. And so that is the expectation of the SEL program and lessons and curriculum and just everything that's encompassing what we're doing with SEL. That's the expectation, and that's our expected outcome. It's where we're going with this. But we're also, as a district, again, it starts with adults. These kids that come to school, they come to school because they're here to learn. They're here to socialize. They're here to engage with their friends. And as adults, it's up to us to reflect on ourselves, to build relationships with kids, and to train ourselves. We're, as a district, talking, and again, just recently, you know, again, for total transparency, you know, we have our trainings through our system of, you know, diversity trainings and just the standard things that happen. But I think it's clear, for being all honest, guess what? That's not working. That's not enough. So we're looking at bringing in some sort of training. We're talking about training for implicit bias, for sensitivity, all these things. So we're hopeful that pairing those things up, bumping that up against the SEL, that we're going to start to see some marked improvement.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu. So to follow up on that, it's great that we will have the training so that we can address the problem from the root. But as we know, we will have some individuals that will not adhere to that training. I have family who have had experience, and you hear these really sad stories. Mom, when I was in 5th grade, I could just tell the teacher treated me differently. Or we as parents have these undercover situations that really aren't explicit enough for us to address, but we know that it's there. So the follow-up question is this. As you know, recently there have been recent incidents in MISD where staff has been accused of racist behavior. So overall, for the future of Mansfield, what measures will the district take to make sure that there's some sort of official disciplinary plan that can be established for students and parents to be able to report behavior and it be addressed and not pushed under the rug?
Thank you for that. Right now, we do have board policies that govern any sort of discrimination related to that, discrimination and harassment. It's DIA when it comes to employees, and then I think it's like FFH or FHH, one of those, when it comes to our students. and we have hearing officers. We hope that those things are handled at the campus level, starting with the assistant principal or the principal. But parents and students always have the ability, if they do not feel that they are satisfied with the results of that. We have, under Title IX, we have hearing officers for students. We have a hearing officer for our students, Dr. Kelvin Stroy, and we have one if there is an allegation against an employee, and that's Vanessa Sneed, who is our DIA hearing officer for the district. So we do have processes and policies that are in place to address those. I think we need to do a better job of communicating that.
I was just going to say that because I don't think that it's very obvious that there's a clear path to reporting these situations without the involved parties feeling uncomfortable or like they're being angry and just complaining. So I do think a good follow-up is to make sure that that's communicated clearly to students and parents so that they feel comfortable and encouraged to be a part of the change by reporting those situations. So thank you, Dr. Cantu. We will now have a question back for the students. I have Jordan.
Hi, my name is Jordan Garza, and I have a question for the mayor. So currently our city council is composed of all white members. How does a minority citizen voice a concern to the city council if the majority of those members don't understand where the citizens are coming from as a minority? What can be done to enforce racial justice within city council?
Well, I think any member, any person has the right to run for council or a county commissioner seat or legislature or anything like that. So as far as the makeup, if it's a matter of people getting involved and voting for the for the person they think is best suited for the job. So as far as I think the question was is what can you do as a council, and I think it's just a matter of who is being elected, and in order to get elected you have to step out and be willing to run for public office. And right now our elections were pushed back this year because of what's happened with COVID. So instead of our elections taking place this past May last month, it's been pushed to November. And so my advice would be to get out and get active, both either as a candidate and or certainly at a minimum as a voter.
Thank you, Mayor. And so with that being said, because the council is what it is at this point in time, what do you think can be done to address making sure that there isn't racial injustice that is happening amongst the decisions for the current council? And I'm not speaking from anything that I've heard or any stories, but since there is a lack of diversity on the city council, what are your thoughts on making sure that whether it's diversity training or anything official to make sure that that sort of SEL type of training happens at the city council level?
I mean, I've certainly not had that question before, and I'm certainly, like I said earlier, open to learning and listening. And so that's something that I would want to learn more about, and any role that I can play in, helping the citizens in general, I want to be a part of that.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great follow-up for our next meeting, is to really not just have that style of curriculum for our parents and students, but across all local government, not just for the police officers, but for the rest of the offices that are in positions of power to make changes. Okay, so do we have another student question?
I wanted to restate my question because I don't believe it was answered correctly. So my question was, how does a citizen voice a concern to city council if the majority of the city council members don't understand where the citizens are coming from as minorities?
Well, I mean, I heard your question. I mean, you can come and speak to citizen comments, or what you're willing to, you're certainly able to come down to a city council meeting and voice any comments you have and give those comments directly to the city council. That would be my best advice.
Okay, and so thank you, Laura. And I think maybe just to help you maybe rephrase that, are you asking, is there another route if you feel like you're not being heard by the city council? If that's the case, then I think what the mayor is saying, you can kind of reiterate, Mayor, but I believe that's where she's coming from with her question.
Can you restate it one more time, Chantel? I'm still not following.
If a citizen does not feel heard by the city council, then what other actions can they take if they don't feel they are received because the council is not necessarily registering or empathizing with their concerns?
Well, I think your point a while ago and your suggestion of diversity training would be a possibility. I don't know of any other, my direct instinct was to say vote that person out. I mean, but the question keeps coming across, what can the council do? And I don't know that the council, it's council members. And so, I can only speak for myself, and I certainly want to, regardless of who's standing at a podium in front of me or at a podium in this form, I want to be someone that's got an open ear, open eyes, and listening and learning and looking for. I like to deal in specifics, and so if based on a specific situation, I would handle it based upon the facts that are before me. But to ask what the council can do, the only thing that I can think of is, and that was what Chantel said, was maybe some type of diversity training from members of councils throughout. And so right now there's, for example, from the state's perspective, the state of Texas requires all elected officials to take a class, an online class on open meetings, and so what that entails. And so maybe that's another idea that's put on through the Attorney General's office. But maybe that's another idea that that could be taken up with the state legislature.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have another question. We have Simone.
Hi, my name is Simone Jones. I'm a rising senior at Mansfield High School. This question is for MISD Police Chief Gregory Venter. If policies are changed to achieve justice in a system not designed to protect people of color, how is the city ensuring these policies are enforced and sustained through time? For example, if the MISD Police Department trains their officers on anti-racist behaviors like patrolling Black students just because they're hanging in a crowd or in a group, how will you, on an ongoing basis, enforce this policy and ensure officers are complying to these anti-racist policies?
Thank you for the question. First, let me check. Can everybody hear me? All right, excellent. To address policies and anti-racist policies, we have bias-based policing policies that are in place and have been in place for quite some time in our policy manual. Our supervisors are charged with making sure that our officers follow those policies and do so correctly. Some of the other things that we're doing is implementing policies and changing some policies to kind of coincide with the 8 can't wait. And those 8 policies, there's a voice for those right now, a huge voice. And we understand that, I understand that. Our policies aren't written exactly like they want them written, but they're very close. And we're working on those and reviewing those policies. I'm doing a complete overhaul or review of our policy manual and have been, because I've had a lot of time on my hands for about the last 3 months for some reason. So, but it's about a 600-page manual. So it takes a little while. I've made some changes and will continue to do so. But to kind of get back on point, the supervisors make sure that the officers follow the policies. I would ask that anybody out there who believes that officers are doing something incorrectly to please contact either me or a supervisor within our department so we can address it. And we will and have. I hope I answered your question.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Mentor. I would like to now move to the time is now a little bit after 4. And Simone, I see you sitting there. Did you have, before we move to our closing remarks, did you have any final words or questions from the students? I definitely want to make sure that you guys got it all off of your chest.
Yes, I have. Well, number one, I have a question back to Gregory Mentor regarding his response, but also there's another student that had a question that didn't get to.
Okay, Faith.
That was Faith.
Okay, so what is your follow-up? Go ahead.
My follow-up is if supervisors are seeing that, you know, the MISD police officers are enforcing their policies, how are we supposed to know that these supervisors are doing their job correctly?
You can always follow up with me. The supervisors report directly to me. So if you think that a complaint or something has been made and due diligence has not been done, by all means, contact me, and I will find out exactly what took place and respond to whoever it is that calls me. So
is there a formal process to do that?
there's a formal process in place for any kind of complaint against a police officer. That is on our district website, on the police department webpage, but non-formal complaints can be made at any time as well. So I would ask anybody that has a complaint against an officer, if you don't feel comfortable talking to just anybody, call me. I'm available.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief Mentor. Okay, and our last question is coming from our student, Faith.
Hello, I am Faith Ogleport, one of BSA's officers and upcoming senior at Mansfield High School. And my question is directed to Mr. Gregory Mentor. The students and I have noticed that you have a Blue Lives Matter flag proudly displayed behind you. Blue Lives Matter was created a year after Black Lives Matter movement was created. Communities of color understand that the movement is directed response to the Black Lives Matter movement that was established during the year of 2013. We've also noticed that it's on the police cars around MISD and Mansfield City. It is incredibly offensive to us, and we consider it extremely disrespectful. Are you aware of the implications that your symbol has for communities of color, or are you unconcerned?
I do understand what you're saying, and I don't know where the Blue Lives Matter symbol is behind me, but if you see it on our cars, please let me know. It's not something that actually is authorized to go on our cars. We have strapping, things like that go on our vehicles. Can you be more specific about where you see that on our vehicles?
I meant to direct the question to Chief Tracy, Mr. Chief Tracy.
Okay, so what was the question again? I want to make sure I understand your question.
Okay, Mr. Chief Tracy, my question was, the students and I have noticed that you have a Blue Lives Matter flag proudly displayed behind you. Blue Lives Matter was created a year after Black Lives Matter movement, and the communities of color understand that the movement is directed response to the Black Lives Matter movement that was established during the year of 2013. It is incredibly offensive to us, and we consider it extremely disrespectful. Are you aware of the implications that your symbol has for communities of color, or are you unconcerned?
Well, I certainly am not aware of the flag that's hanging on my wall being a symbol of Blue Lives Matter. It's a symbol of Back the Blue, and that's all it is. So had no idea that that was offensive to anybody.
The flag has the same replications as the Blue Lives Matter flag. So they're basically the same.
Okay. Did you have a response, Chief? I didn't want to cut you off. I thought I.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, all I can say is it's a Back the Blue flag. It's a flag that's no different than Back the Communications flag, which happens to have a yellow stripe. Back the Military flag that happens to have a green stripe on it. So I guess I don't understand how it becomes offensive.
Okay. You're concerned.
So I will just shed a little bit of input on the Blue Lives Matter flag. Many of these students were with me on the corner of Broad and near the CVS, and we had a very peaceful protest. There were some that tried to interrupt us by trying to get a reaction through just really antagonizing behavior. One of those being a person in the truck with a Blue Lives Matter flag on top of the truck and circling around us for about 5 minutes with these sort of evil glares just until they're seen. And so I think what she's trying to express is that although there are many people who have an innocent perspective when it comes to these flags, that highlighting where we are in times now, it's important that we understand that it may mean something different, even if you aren't aware of that. And so if I haven't seen those on cars, but if they have seen them on cars, we would like for the officials to know that it is used in a manner as a response to Black Lives Matters, in addition to it may just having an independent meaning to individuals like yourself. And so it's important that we understand the way that it's used and that it needs to be highlighted in case it becomes an issue or communicates a principle that Mansfield Police Department doesn't stand for.
Well, you know, one thing I think is that you have to start from is communication. That's what we're doing today.
Yes.
And of course, what the blue line means to us is nothing more than the thin blue line between justice and anarchy. I mean, if we're standing on that blue line and we're going to protect our citizens regardless of where those citizens lie. And that is what that blue line stands for, is the thin blue line that we stand on. You know, if someone can make that flag be something different than what it really intended to be, it would be no different than making these other flags mean something that they never intended to be. But that's exactly what it is. And I think where the problem comes is we don't have a conversation to actually say, what does that flag mean to us? And what does that flag mean to other people? This is the first time that I've ever heard that that was an issue, because it is not a Blue Lives Matter flag. It's a flag that represents the thin line of justice that we stand on to protect our citizens from good and evil. That's exactly what it is.
Thank you for your response. So now we will move to our closing remarks. I would like to thank the panelists for sharing your answers and your perspectives, and I will give you the opportunity. We will go around the panel to give you to provide closing remarks that you would like to give to us as the audience and the citizens that are on the line. So I will start with you, Police Chief Tracy Aaron. You're on mute.
Well, you missed the very best part then, so I'll start over. So I think that first of all, I want to thank the Pastor Evans and Mayor Cook for facilitating this. You know, it's through relationships like this and conversations like this that set our city apart from any other city that you're going to see hosting events like this. And it's having honest conversation about what is offending you and what is offensive. And so many times we don't know what that is. You know, I took the initiative to get out on our street corners and do some listening, just to listen myself to what is going on in our community. And I think that that's what we have to continue to do, is we have to listen, and then we have to respond to those sessions. And a lot of times it just means that people don't understand. So in our case in particular, people don't understand what Mansfield already does, and they assume that we are lacking in training or lacking in this or that. But what I enjoy is having a conversation to be able to talk about the things that we do. And so with that, I always encourage those conversations. I encourage these forums like this. I've had meetings in my office, and I continue to encourage those. And so I think that I echo the sentiment of my entire department that this is all about building relationships. I think that what we have shown is that in our history, that we have been about building relationships in our community, and I think we stand on that record. So thank you very much for everybody that was participating. Thank you very much for everybody from the school that participated, especially our students, and thank you for the honest conversation.
Thank you, Chief. We can hear from you now, Mayor Cook.
Thank you. Yeah, so I would just say, I know that Faith and our younger generations are big fans of Wikipedia, and I just wanted to, to kind of clarify that. I don't know if y'all can see this or not, but I wear this as well, and I certainly worn it for probably 3 years probably since the shooting that took place in downtown Dallas, and Pastor Evans and myself and several other community members got a lot of people together in the community at the public safety building. And, I think that's when this thin blue line, really started. And so I think that this forum today is ripe. I think it's appropriate, and I'm thankful that a city like Mansfield is taking the steps of taking this opportunity to have a conversation. I just want to say thanks for Faith and everyone else today that's giving us an opportunity to learn and hear. And I just, I think this is a perfect example. But if you do look on Wikipedia, there is a difference. I mean, according to Wikipedia, there is a Blue Lives Matter Wikipedia definition, and there is a thin blue line Wikipedia definition. And so, but I think that's just it's a learning experience, certainly for myself, and because I've not had that conversation either, just like Chief Aaron has said. So I want to just remind everybody that at least everyone that's involved today, I believe that we are all well intended, and God willing, we're going to come together as a community and do what's best for the city of Mansfield, and then just be that light and be a beacon so that other cities in Texas can learn from how we do it in the city of Mansfield, and then other states can learn from the state of Texas, and so on. But that's my prayer is that we have an opportunity to work together, learn from one another, and put in principles and just guidelines that will help us in dealing with racial relations. And again, I just want to thank everyone that's involved today, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, Mayor Cook. And we can also now hear from you, Dr. Cantu.
Yes, thank you to everyone who is responsible, again, for bringing us all together today for this conversation. I get to work for and serve for an incredible school board who I know is supportive of our faculty, our students, and of working with our community to continue to create change. And so just on behalf of Mansfield ISD, thank you so very much. Thank you for the conversation. We want to continue the dialogue, continue the conversations, but we don't want to just stop with conversation. We know we need to take action as well. And so we are committed to doing the things that need to be done to get us where we all need to be. And I just, again, thank everybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Allen?
Great, thank you so much, Chantel. Can you all hear me okay? Because I had a few issues there while some other folks were speaking. So, okay, good, okay. So I know that I've gone around so far with a panelist, but I certainly wanted to express my own. And I don't think that I captured all the student names, but I did just want to call you out for your work. Majesty, Julian, Chris, Laura, Simone, and Faith. I think there were a few that I missed. One in particular, one of the students asked, well, all of y'all asked really good.
I believe we lost you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Okay, you're back?
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yes. Thank goodness. Okay. I wanted to say all of you asked really good pointed questions, and I think it's important for you to continue doing that. Not just so that you can really get out your thoughts via that question, but so that you can be ready to receive the information and then take that and incorporate it into your plan. I think when you assume any leadership role, you have to be ready to act with courage and boldness, but you do have to practice humility also, and knowing that none of us know everything. And certainly for those who showed up to serve on the panel, you all as organizers, and certainly those who are listening, that your presence is showing that you want to be part of the solution, and that's really important. Now, I want to be sure to share with you all how to stay in contact with my office. We have two offices, one at the Mansfield Subcourthouse on East Broad Street, and then in Arlington off of Abram. And then I do have an office downtown. We have Commissioners Court meeting every Tuesday at 10 a.m. and you can view those online. And that's where we conduct the business of the court. We receive public comment and a few other things, or many other things rather. And so our office number is 817-248-6099. You can follow us on Facebook, my official commissioner page. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can email us at commissionerprecinct2@tarrantcounty.com. Lastly, I know that the focus of this conversation was on what to do with the divide in our community and the opportunity for healing. And I would be remiss as a county official not to talk about COVID. And so I want you all to, as you're demonstrating, going about your daily lives, shopping, whatever it is, please practice the tried and true public health prevention measures. And be sure to visit tarrantcounty.com and visit our COVID page so you can see the resources that are available to you from a testing standpoint. Also, we have a small business assistance grant program that will be live on Monday, where there's $30 million that's allocated to businesses in Tarrant County outside of Fort Worth. And there are many other resources. So please do reach out to our office. One of my #1 priorities is to make sure that we're responsive. So with that, again, I want to thank everybody for their work leading up to this. And then, of course, we've got a ways to go yet.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I will throw it to Judge Kenneth Sanders for your closing remarks.
I want to thank Pastor Evans for putting this forum together. I do believe it's dialogue such as this that brings us together as a community. Being able to talk out our differences, being able to be responsive to questions and inquiries from the general public. I think it helps all of us get on the same page, because whether we like it or not, we're in this life together, and we might as well get along to make it easier on all of us. And so I thank Pastor Evans, and I thank everyone else who was a part of this forum today.
Thank you, Judge Sanders. Chief Mentor, are you still there?
I am. I feel like I have about 8 questions to answer while I was muted, but I won't do that. I'm sure we can do that the next time. I am not surprised that the city and the school district came together to do this. We've always seemed to be headed in the right direction, and communication is the best way to do that. And I'm proud of the students that came today and asked the questions that they did. The panel overall, great panel, and these are individuals that can get things done, and we can head in the right direction. So I look forward to the next meeting and the meetings after that, and would love to continue to be a part of this, and I'll get my computer fixed, I promise.
Thank you, Chief Mentor. Dr. Tucker, any closing remarks from you?
Again, that's already been stated. Thank you, Pastor Evans. Thank you to the panel, to the students. We thank you and we love you for being bold and being strong and communicating your thoughts. Thank you. I would say to each one of us, communication does rule the nation. It takes away any question that we may have. But while we leave this place and when we're getting ready to do specific things and other things, let us not be amiss about our 3 gates: our eyes, our ears, and our mouth. These 3 gates receive and give out information all day long. Some of us have heard some things, some of us have seen some things, and some of us even speak some things. Maybe this is the time that some of us start to change some things. So with that being said, I thank you, and I look forward to the next meetings, the next chat that we have, because in order to move something, we must first start with the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for your closing remarks. And
all right, Simone, we'll let you close us out in that regard, and then I'll come in after you and we'll wrap it all up. So at this time, let's hear from Simone with the Black Student Association, Mansfield Senior High School. Go ahead, Simone.
Hi, so Black Student Association is here along with Laura and Jordan, who have helped us along in the student panel. We would like to say that we thank you for allowing us to be here, and we also want to say that if you want to find Black Black Student Association of Mansfield on Instagram. Our tag is Black Student Association MHS. And also we would like to say you will be seeing us again, whether it's in an email, a protest, a sit-in, or any other way, and we will make sure our voices are heard.
Outstanding, Simone. We appreciate you all, and you all are our leaders. You're coming up. We're passing you the baton, and we believe that you all are going to do an outstanding job. I want to thank Ms. Chantel for doing an outstanding job. We appreciate her and her expertise in this area of coordination, prowess. Also, again, to our MISD students, all of the people working behind the scenes. We've got X amount of people working behind the scenes. I appreciate each and every one of them. We want to thank, of course, the Bethlehem Church, the historic West Mansfield, Texas Community Development Corporation, Mansfield Strong, for underwriting the first of, I hope, 4 seminars on a community conversation on race relations. Thank each and every one of you. Please remember that all of your questions, those registrants, there were more than 200 of you today. Know that your questions, all of them, will be given to our panelists. And again, hear me say that this is only the beginning. Dr. Tucker is right. Everything starts with conversation. Through conversations, we develop relationships. And I hope that this was an opportunity for our community leaders to be humanized, so you can see that they are human beings just like you are. And of course, as it concerns the common denominator, we all want a safe, equitable community that we live in. We want to make sure that all people are treated with the dignity that God has afforded for each and every one of us, no matter who we are, no matter what we look like, no matter where we come from. That is important to us. So I also want you to know that I hope that to each one of our panelists that, again, we thank you. Not a one of these individuals gave this a second guess, not a one. And I appreciate you for being courageous. And again, I thank our students. So Dr. Cantu, you're working with an outstanding group of young people, and they make Mansfield strong, and they make us all feel good and look good. So let me say this as we close out. To those who are listening, those who are viewing, attend your local school board meeting, your city council meetings, your community college meetings, and stay engaged. Stay engaged. And I heard what the mayor said earlier, and he's right. If you have individuals who you think that they're not respondent to your questions, your concerns, the mayor said it himself. He said, vote them out. And he's right about that. He's right about that because we all work for you, and we know that we do. So blessings to all. And I'm asking you all to have a happy Juneteenth, June 19. And we pray that we celebrate 155 years of emancipation. That's a mighty good thing. Black history is American history, and we're all in it together. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so very much. And this ends our first community conversation on race relations. Thank you. Hope it sparked some dialogue.